All right, well, good morning, everybody.
Good morning.
Welcome to school. This should be relatively quick. I know we talk about customer satisfaction, okay? We think about it in, there's sort of like science and there's art, right? You got two different things. Science, you can measure, you can test, you can do things like that. Where art, it's kind of all is subject. You know, if somebody makes a painting, you decide whether or not you like it. Just you look at it, either you like it, you don't like it, maybe you kind of like it, you don't know, okay? But they're a little bit different, right? So a lot of times we think of customer satisfaction a little bit more like art. Like, you're not really sure, are they going to be happy or not? You do the best you can do to make them happy, okay? But there's a little bit of a science to it too, okay? And this is something I've taken classes on. It's actually a little bit interesting. This is good information for you guys, even in your personal lives, to know about. All right, but I'm going to kind of break it down for you. It's relatively simple, but it's a great thing to understand, and it's one of the reasons why hopefully you guys can better understand why we're so constantly driving home the point about leaving a good impression with the customers and making sure that everything's in good shape and not leaving bad impressions. Okay, it's a combination of leave a good impression, but don't leave a bad impression. So here's what happens. You're going to go through a typical year. We start off a year, right? Early spring. Go through the year. Now let's say this is customer satisfaction level right here. Early spring, they're kind of at 0. That doesn't mean 0 like bad, horrible. That just means kind of neutral, okay? Spring starting. They might even be a little bit upset starting off in the early spring. Oftentimes that's the case because just came out of the winter, the lawn's looking kind of ratty. They want it to look green tomorrow. It takes a little while. Sometimes it takes us a while to get out to every single customer. Okay, we got to get all the services done, and some people are going to be at the end of the list. Just by definition, we can't do everybody on the same day, right? So sometimes they might be starting off the year a little bit, they're not too happy because things aren't looking good, but they're willing to, they've used us in the past, they like us, they want us to keep going, right? Okay, so then we do our first applications, and that kind of goes up. Now the lawn's greening up, and it's looking nicer, right? Now they're getting happier. Now, one of the things you can do real quickly is when you do that first application, if you have a chance to interact with the customer, is if you look good, you got your shirt tucked in, uniforms on, truck looks good, you're pleasant, you smile, you say hello, all that kind of stuff. They walk away going, these are good guys. I like them, right? So even if the lawn's not looking good yet, right off the bat, you've raised their satisfaction, maybe from here to here, just down to 0. They're feeling good about us. So the year's going on. Usually late spring, things are looking pretty good. Customers are reasonably happy, okay? Then things come along, and let's say in the summertime things aren't looking very good. It's starting to get hot, so now they're getting a little annoyed. Okay, they're not too happy. We're kind of in that state right now, right? There's a lot of crabgrass out there. There's brown lawns. We've had a lot of rain this year compared to a lot of years, so it's not as bad as it has been in some years. But people aren't quite as happy anymore. It's kind of going like that. All right, but let's say you go out and you somehow or another you get there and you do just a fantastic job. Or let's flip that. Let's say for some reason you do something wrong. Okay, you show up, your truck is blocking their way out of their garage. Okay, your doors are all wide open. They come over and they say, "Hey, can you move the truck?" You say, give me 10 minutes." All right, none of you guys would ever do that, I hope. But let's just hypothetically say somebody did that. You ignore them. You go, you do that. You don't blow anything off the drive. Okay, now they're down like here, okay? Now they're really annoyed. Even if the lawn's looking good, they're annoyed, okay? But then let's say, we go back. A little bit of time goes by. They decide to give us another shot. They've been using us for a few years. And we're getting into the fall, lawns are starting to look green again, and we finish off the end of the year kind of here. Okay? So this is kind of charting the customer satisfaction level through the year. Now, in reality, maybe it'll be more like this. Who knows? It's going to be different for every customer, right? But here's what happens, and this is kind of the interesting thing. Where's the lowest or the highest spot on that? Right here, right? There's our low spot, okay? And then, now is that low spot lower than this high spot? Yeah, okay. So you can ignore that. We'll just go with the low spot here. Now we're getting into the mathematics of customer satisfaction, okay? And here we are at the end of the year, okay? So let's if you look at those, you got your peak is your lowest spot or your highest spot, whichever one is bigger, okay? So the peak, let's just say that's down about here. And at the end of the year, started up a little bit here, okay? So these are your 2 main points. You need to find the average of that. Okay, the average of those 2, I'm just going to kind of visually do it. It's going to be maybe like that. Does that seem about right?
Yeah.
You think that customer is going to sign up with us again next year? Probably not, right? Even though good chunk of the year was pretty good, finished off the year really good, this one bad experience right here drew the whole thing right down. Okay? And this is actually, they've been able to do a ton of psychological studies on people to find out, and when they ask people what their level of satisfaction is with a company or a service, it always boils down to this. They can always predict it with almost 100% accuracy. What was their highest or lowest point of satisfaction? And what were they thinking when at the very end of the experience? Okay, so at the end of the year. And you average those 2 together, and that's what people will tell you how satisfied they were. People don't realize they're doing this. Okay, we do this all the time. Everybody does. This is the way our brains work. Okay, scientists have been able to dig in and figure out that this is how our brains work. This is really good for us to know, because this is one of the things, like we talk about having a bad experience, customers having a really bad experience on the lawn. Even if we end off the year in a great shape, they're probably not going to renew. Because at the end of the year, they really think, if you ask them, how were things all year long? They're going to say, it wasn't great. It was okay, but it wasn't great. In reality, it was pretty good for a good chunk of the year. Well, actually, this one's not great for a chunk of the year, but a lot of that was due to the hot weather, right? Okay? So it's very important to keep that in mind. Now, we can use this to our advantage, too. First thing we need to do is avoid these dips. Don't let these happen. Okay? But let's go and say, early spring, they start off early spring, and we go through the season, lawn's looking really good, and then we're kind of coming along, and in here, you show up, something really nice happens, okay? You get there, you're able to help them out, maybe they watch you pick up the toys from the kids' party, come over their home, you say, hey, how you doing, Mrs. Smith? Talk to her a little bit, say, is it okay, we're going to put the kids' toys over here, we'll just leave them here for the time being. You do the application nicely, you blow everything off, you smile and you say, have a great day. Okay, they feel like, wow, these guys are really cool. Okay, now you're up here, right? Now, let's say somewhere in the year something negative happened, but it kind of just went like this. Maybe the lawn wasn't looking great, but you just gave them a great experience. They felt really happy. They were right about there. Okay, and we can go like this, and the year goes like this. Doesn't really matter. The point is, what's your highest point here? Aha, now this one, we're up here. You can actually ignore these little bad things through the year, okay? Because you had a really good experience at one point, and then you look again at the end of the year. So in this year, this customer, we had a peak, somewhere up around like that, right? And then it finished off the year somewhere like that. So what's our average? Somewhere around like here. Okay? So that customer's probably going to renew next year, right? So the key point to keep in mind here is throughout the year, in most cases, really, you guys are not interacting with a lot of the customers. You're just doing the applications. Okay, you're coming out, you're doing the applications. Most of the year is probably going to be something more along the lines of, here. Because customers don't really see you too much. They come out, you do the application, you blow everything off. They're like, yeah, okay, good. They did their job. That's fine. That's good. Okay. We want to try to push it up a little bit by getting some of these peaks, giving them some of those experiences that they feel like, wow, these guys are great. That means not letting, if they're looking at their lawn coming into the fifth service and they've been staring at crabgrass and weeds for 2 months straight, they're starting to get frustrated, and that's starting to drop their satisfaction level down to dangerous levels. Okay? And even if you did some really great things and you were nice and polite and everything, if that wasn't bigger here than this was here, they're going to forget about all that. Okay? And you're going to be frustrated because you're going to come out and go, why didn't that customer renew? I interacted with them like 4 times this year. I was really nice. I did everything well. Well, there's this one thing here. They remembered that one thing, the crabgrass and the weeds that they were staring at for 2 months. And that's what drew their average down. And even if you end off the year in good shape, they're not happy. The average is below 0. They're canceling. Okay? So you have 2 things to think about here. Number 1, we're going to want to make sure that by the end of the year, everybody's lawn is looking really good. Okay? And we're going to be getting into fall service. In a few weeks, going to be starting the aerating and seeding. That's the most critical service of the year, really, because that's going to really determine how good the lawn looks through the fall and whether or not they finish off the year strong. Okay, so that's a big one. I know we've talked about that. I'm sure Chad's been kind of getting you guys mentally prepared for that because it's going to be a lot of work. But at the same time, through the year, we've got an opportunity here as we go to leave them with a really good impression. Just really keep that in mind and to avoid any bad impressions. So I know we talked about, and Chad's talked about, avoid negative impressions, right? This is why. Because even if you're doing a good job all year long, again, you could be like this all year long and have one bad thing like that, okay? Average of this and this, they're somewhere around here. That's how they're going to think about us. See how powerful that is? And that's just the way people are wired, okay? So that's not something most lawn companies are thinking about, okay? Most of them are thinking about just get the application done, leave the bill, go home. Or don't go home, go to your next job until it's dark out, then come on back, and then you can go home. But this is the kind of stuff we need to think about. If we're going to maintain our status as a premier service, this is the kind of stuff we need to think about, okay? All right, very cool.